The job of a resin worker requires a proper sharpening of each of the tools that he must use in the different phases of the process. I think it's perfect now. It's ready to start working. The debarking or bark stripping is done once a year to each tree by cuts starting from the base. Once the bark or roya is removed, the Resin worker nails the plate with the half moon and places the pot. From this moment, the pin starts to slowly drip the miera or resin, which will be collected in the ceramic pots. It's precisely from now on that the hard work of the resin workers begins. From the first days of April, each resin worker daily dedicates to retrim with the adze each one of the 3,500 or 4,000 pines in their plot which has been assigned by lot. Retrimming consists of skillfully tearing off strips of wood or seroyas that open new miera outlets in the pine. This process is done every 4 or 5 days. On the sides of the cut is where the pine releases the most resin. In order to ease the flow of miera drops on some cuts, the resin workers place small wood shavings or serojas inclined towards the pot. The resin worker will not collect the miera from the pots until 4 retrims have been made to each pine. Thus, when the pots are full, he transfers resin to other containers placed underneath. The appropriate width of the cut for resin tapping ranges from 12.5 centimeters at the base to 11 centimeters at the 5th year's cut. This working technique, which consists of retrimming the pines with the adze removing small wood shavings, is called hugues. When doing the high cuts, the adze is used with a long handle, and it's called pull cutting. Conversely, for the low cuts, a short handle is used, and it's called scraping. Another system for resin extraction is called bark chipping, because only the first layer is removed without extracting wood. To provoke the release of miera, the resin worker applies a few drops of diluted sulfuric acid on the cut. Other resin workers use what's called paste, which is the same diluted acid, but mixed with plaster, so it doesn't splash on the skin. This system is the most practical and allows the resin workers who use it to work on a larger number of pines in the same hours than if they did it by the Hughes system. The work of retrimming lasts until October, and from All Saints' Day the scraping begins. This tool is called a scraper, which is used for this that we are going to do now. It's only used for this. It scrapes like this without removing wood, because then the manufacturers make a deduction and then just try to extract the miera. It's a pity to leave this on the pines because it's worth money. Since the work has been done in the summer, it's removed little by little, and it will be worth some money. And that's it. After the month of April, when 4 retrims have already been made to each pine, that is, about 20 days have passed, the miera can be collected. To remove the resin from the pots and pour it into buckets, a knife is used. The miera collected in the buckets is transported to certain points where the buyer has placed the drums. When they are completely full, the manufacturer will come to collect them. On average, each pine can produce about 4 kilos of resin in a 9-month season. Therefore, a man who works 5,000 pines can obtain around 20,000 kilos of miera. The miera has been transported to the Urbano Criado factory. It used to be stored in wooden barrels of 200 kilos, which kept the miera much cleaner. Each of the drums is numbered and all have the same tar weight. This allows the manufacturer to control the kilos of miera collected by each resin worker and its quality to make the corresponding settlement. As it arrives from the forest, with all the impurities from the debarking, pine needles, sand and water from some storm, the miera is collected in a tank called a pila, which serves as a storage until its transformation. To check the amount of water in the resin, a wooden paddle is inserted into the drum. By looking at the bubbles that stick to the resin, the manufacturer can approximately calculate the amount of water in the drum. The kilos of contained water will be deducted from the resin worker in the corresponding settlement. Due to the miera's viscosity, to extract all the content from the drum, hot steam jets must be applied. When it is well diluted, the miera detaches from the walls of the container. By its own weight, the miera enters the preparatory cauldron where it is dissolved by heating it to a certain temperature depending on its quality. A filter at its base will retain the larger impurities. The steam needed for the entire resin distillation process is generated in the boiler room. Pine branches and other debris from the pine forest are used as fuel. Using the steam pressure, the turpentine, which is what clean miera is called, rises from the preparatory cauldron to decanters, where all the liquid impurities and the few solids that may have risen are separated. In the preparatory cauldron's filter, almost all the solid impurities that arrived in the resin drums are left behind. As if that were not enough, before rising to the decanters, the turpentine passed through an autoclave, where it left the small remnants of solid impurities that passed from the preparatory cauldron. After 12 hours in the decanters, Urbano fills the still with turpentine. In the still, the turpentine is subjected to a certain temperature to carry out the distillation process. After boiling inside the still the vapor, from the essence of turpentine with water, vapor exits through a cap into a tube. The vapors travel a long tube in the shape of a coil inside a water condenser. On this long journey of the tube submerged in cold water, the vapor of the essence of turpentine, or spirits of turpentine, and the water vapor condense back into liquid form. The mixture of water and turpentine falls into the Florentine flask. There, due to its lower density, the turpentine separates from the water. Once all the turpentine has been extracted from the turpentine, rosin remains as the second main product. Exiting the still, the rosin, hot and liquid, passes through a very fine filter that retains the small impurities that remain. In a cart, the rosin or Greek pitch is taken out of the distillation center to fill the bags with it. This process must be very quick. As the rosin cools down, it solidifies. Quickly, the rosin is poured into pre-prepared bags with a capacity of 50 kilos, which are the ones that will be supplied to the market. The most widespread use of rosin is mainly for the production of adhesives, varnishes, paper, waxes, but especially for the manufacture of chewing gum. According to data from Urbano Criado, the manufacturer from Zarzuela del Pinar, for every kilo of miera or resin, as it arrives from the forest, 700 grams of rosin are obtained and 200 grams of turpentine, That is, there's only a loss of 10%. In Zarzuela del Pinar, Miera, or Resin, is part of its history. There, almost all the neighbors, until very recently, have had some connection with the pine forest and have known all these little secrets of its utilization. Today, barely a dozen men continue to collect this inner sweat that the Pinus Pinister offers them as a means of livelihood.